Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Club Inventory Counts and Adjustments webinar. My name is Sarah. I'll be hosting this webinar today. Just a couple of things before we get started. The phones are currently muted by me, and that is just to minimize the background noise. If you do have any questions, please go ahead and use the chat box or use the Q&A, and you can get to that by navigating to the very top center of your screen. Should be a little green bar there. If you hover over that, it will drop down and you should be able to click on chat or Q&A. I'll try to answer all questions when appropriate, so if it's relevant to the slide that we are on, I will go ahead and answer those. If I feel that it will be coming up in future slides or we've already passed that information, I will go ahead and answer them at the end. So we will have some time at the end for question and answer. A copy of this session will also be available online to download in PDF version, as well as video. So the PDF version is available at the screen where you signed up for this webinar, so that's jonassupport.com under Resources and Training, Club Continuing Education. And the video will also be available at jonassupport.com under Resources and Training, but this time under Video Library. So what to expect from this webinar? It's just to enhance your knowledge of Jonas, so it's to be taken as a refresher. We do expect that you have a base knowledge before you start, and it's not to be in replace of training. It's approximately 50 minutes of information with 10 minutes for questions and answers. So what I'll do is any questions that come through the chat box, I'll answer those first, and then I'll go ahead and unmute the lines, and we can go ahead for any live question and answer. We are recording this session, so if you do not wish to have your voice on the recording, please go ahead and use the chat box for your question. I will not use your name for any questions that come through the chat box. So let's get started. This is what we'll be going through today. So first, to do an inventory count and adjustment, we will go ahead and check that the system counts and the value to the physical count match up. We'll compare them. We'll do any adjustments that need to be done. And we'll talk about when you should be doing inventory counts and adjustments. So typically we say at least annually. Most clubs do it at every month end. So first step is we're going to talk about your valuation method. So each club can pick one of 4 valuation methods in Jonas. The first one is average cost. So what that means is the total quantity of items on hand divided by the total cost of those items. So one particular SKU, every time you receive it, the total quantity that's on hand will take the cost that you receive it as and divide it out. Then we have standard cost, which is not recommended. It allows you as the user to set the cost. So receipts do not change it. You set what the standard cost is for this SKU, and no matter what you receive it as, Jonas will recognize that as the cost. Then we have LIFO, which is last in, first out. Usually we do this for perishable goods. So this receipt keeps its own cost, and the inventory is depleted with the most recent first. So if you do 3 different receipts, the third one will be taken first. Then we have first in, first out, which is very common. This actually has its own special adjustment option as well, which we'll go through. But first in, first out just means that each receipt keeps its own cost, and the inventory takes away from the oldest first. So if you have 3 different receipts with 3 different costs, it will take the first one as opposed to the third. So inventory counts, when should you be doing them? Usually if the club owns the pro shop, your inventory counts are probably done around month end. It can be done whenever you need it. Some clubs do it weekly, some do it monthly, quarterly, annually. But typically month end is the standard. So if the count is done on the last day of the month, what you'll need to do is take into consideration any days that are not updated. So what that means is in the point of sale, you do have to run every day that end of day update, which adjusts your inventory quantities on hand for you. Want to make sure that those are done before the snapshot is taken. Otherwise, the snapshot will not account for those days of sales, and your counts will right off the bat be off. So to do an inventory count, this would be your process. So number 1 would be update all end of days. That's under point of sale, end of day reports, end of day update. Then enter in all your receipts and all of your adjustments. So make sure anything for that month is accounted for in Jonas. Then go ahead and proceed to snapshot your inventory, print your count sheets, enter your counts or upload them from your scanners if you're using inventory scanners. Run your valuation report and update preview. Go through that, make sure that that everything is correct. If you need to, go ahead and adjust those necessary counts, receipts, or adjustments, and then run the valuation report and update. So that is how you close out your counts and update it in Jonas, as well as get the applicable GL postings. So step 1, the snapshot. So we're assuming here that you have done all of your receipts for the month and you've also run all of your end of days. We're skipping straight to snapshot. So the snapshot basically allows the users to continue to sell inventory items, but count as of a certain time. So if we're counting as of the 31st, you would run your snapshot on the 31st. Even if you don't finish your count until the 4th or the 5th of the next month, you can still use those numbers from the 31st. So you can still remain open while you're counting. Snapshots are usually taken of the entire inventory, but you can select different stock locations. So it depends on how big your club is and how big your pro shop is. You'll want to make sure that if you're small and you just have one location, you are taking for all stock locations, but if you do have 2 locations and they're very far away from each other, you'll want to do 2 different snapshots. So in regards to actually running your snapshot, this comes from Club Inventory, Inventory Count, Snapshot, Inventory. It's the very top option, and all of these options are actually in order. A couple of things to take note of is once you've chosen your club and your inventory area, there is 2 flags there, and the first one is Start Counts at 0. So what that means is all items will be assumed to have a 0 count if they're not entered. So if you are counting off of a scanner, this is very important that you have it checked off. If you do not have it checked, it will start your counts at what Jonas thinks the quantity on hand is. So if Jonas thinks that I have 4 of a particular SKU, I upload a count of 5, all of a sudden I have 9. So always start counts at 0 if you're uploading from a scanner. Partial scanner count just means that all items will remain at the system count, so what Jonas thinks they have based on your end of day updates and your previous inventory counts, except for those brought in from the scanner. So the scanner, if you are using an inventory scanner, when you go ahead and upload that file, it will completely wipe out those counts and replace them. Anything else that was not in the scanner will remain as it was. So if I happen to have 4 of a SKU, I don't scan it, it doesn't get on my scanner, I upload all my scanner counts, I'm still going to have 4 at the end of the count. So if you're not using a scanner, go ahead and don't select either. And what that means is all of the counts will be what Jonas thinks you have, and all you have to enter in or count are the ones that actually have a variance. So if Jonas thinks you have 4, you do have 4, that's 100% correct. Don't start your counts at 0 because then you'll have to enter in the 4 again. So when you're running a snapshot, the system will actually do an integrity check. And what this does is it makes sure that the SKU quantity on hand balance is the same as the transaction log. So the SKU quantity on hand balance would be what you see from the actual SKU setup screen, and it's what Jonas thinks you have. What it does is it cross-references that to your transaction log, so your transaction log keeps track of any receipts, any adjustments, any sales, and make sure that those are the same. If they're different, Jonas will automatically fix those issues for you and will give you a report of any differences. So usually this is caused by incomplete postings, errors in the system, or maybe receipts that weren't fully entered. So it doesn't require any action on your part. This integrity check happens when you run the snapshot automatically. This is a pop-up that you'll get when you're running your snapshot. It just tells you all about that integrity check, reminds you that it's happening, and then you'll get a report if there are any variances. The next option down in that inventory count menu, so Club Inventory, Inventory Count, is Delete Snapshot. Generally, you can skip over this as part of your month-end process, but what it does is it removes snapshots that were taken in error. So if you ran a snapshot for maybe one area, but you needed to do it for a different area, or if you've done a snapshot for one location and you wish to do it for all locations, all you have to do is click on Delete Snapshot. It removes everything taken in error as well as any counts that were entered under that snapshot and any adjustments that were entered. And then they won't be on your system anymore. You can start fresh. This is what the Delete Snapshot screen looks like. You choose your club, then you choose your snapshot done by area and location, as well as it gives you some more information as date taken and who took it. All you have to do is hit OK here, and that snapshot will be deleted. So the next option down in that Inventory Counts menu and where you should be headed right after you do your snapshot is Print Count Sheets. So this would be, of course, if you're not using a scanner to count your inventory. So the count sheets can be printed by category and stock location, And there's all kinds of different parameters in there, which I will show you a screenshot of on the next slide, of how you can show your count sheets. So you have to have a snapshot on file, of course. You can select certain categories. You can select certain stock locations. And you can also have the option on there to show the current count. So on your count sheet, you could print out, the SKU, the description, what Jonas thinks you have, and then there's a spot for you to actually write in what you actually have. There's also an option to show items on trial, or items not, or the option to not show package bill of materials. So if one SKU is set to pull from 2 other SKUs, not to show those. There's also an option to show only items with quantities on hand, so that'll only show you things that Jonas thinks that you have, or with activity. So the activity option would be a good one to check off. The one with only quantities on hand, I wouldn't recommend checking because you might get some that Jonas thinks you have 0 of that you actually do have, and then they won't be on your count sheet. So if I go to the next screen here, this is what the account sheets parameter screen looks like. You can see all of those options. So the only thing you really need to select here is your club and your area. Everything else is user preference, so you can choose exactly how you want it to look. There's also the option to export it to Excel. So if you export it to Excel, you can play around with formatting even more. This is what just your standard count sheet looks like. You can see it's organized by category. I have my SKU number, my description. I have all my stock locations there, and then the quantity on hand, and then there is a spot for me to actually write my count in. So as I'm walking around my pro shop, I'll write in how many I have of each of these items. Once you have your count sheets printed and you've done your count, you can go ahead and go to Enter Item Counts. So there are 2 ways to do this. You can, of course, upload from your inventory scanner, but you can also enter them in manually. So we'll go through the manual entry first. The most efficient way to do it is by category order. So when you're going into that screen, you'll choose your club, your area, and you'll select by category. And then you can go ahead and select your stock location. So if your club only has 1, it will default to main. You won't have to select that at all. What we recommend is to check off that Get All SKUs box. So what that means is it will, once you choose the first SKU that you'd like to enter a count for, you can actually just continue to hit Enter, and it will do the next SKU in numeric order. You can continue doing this until all SKUs are entered, and then you can also come back in here to correct your counts once you've run your preview. So if I flip to the next screen here, you can see what that count screen looks like. So you have your club, your area, and then how we selected, which was by category. You have your location, and then you can see that Get All SKUs checkbox. And then, of course, my Use Scanner is not checked off. I have my SKU numbers here with the description, how much the snapshot thought I had, how much my actual count was, and you can see since I started my counts at 0, my cumulative is just how much I entered in. So if I had not started my counts at 0 in the snapshot, that Tigerwood short sleeve would have had 11 in the cumulative. So once you have entered in your inventory counts manually, you can go ahead and go to Enter Cost Changes. So this can only be used if you're using the standard or the LIFO, L-I-F-O costing method. What this does is it'll show you the cost that Jonas thinks that you have, and what you can do is enter the SKU and then pick a new cost price. So standard, of course, is when you just have decided that this is what the SKU costs, regardless of what you're receiving it as. And LIFO means last in, first out. So you can see on my 2 example SKUs here, we have a current cost, and then we also have a new cost. So that's, I've assigned the new cost, and this will be reflected right away on my update. So if you're manually entering, you will have to do your cost changes as well as your item counts. So if you do have an inventory scanner, you can go ahead and go to Club Inventory, Inventory Count, Upload Inventory Count. So this is not the same as the Enter Item Counts that we were using for the manual entry. This is a completely different option on the menu. Our Upload Inventory Count gives you a couple of options, and again, I will show you this screen on the next slide. First, we have our generic scanner upload. So you have 2 options here. One prompt, which is the UPC, 0 or blank, which uses 0 counts default to 1. So what that means is if you've scanned something and it's coming through on the file from your scanner as a 0 quantity, Jonas will automatically assume that that actually means 1. It does that because if it was there for you to scan, you probably do have one on file. So it just helps you with your valuation report to make sure that it stays accurate. The second one, option number 2, well, again, it's UPC, comma, quantity on the file. So the UPC code of the item, comma, the quantity. System will use the quantity in the file. So if you do have a 0 in there, the system will assume that it's 0. You can also upload by SKU. So the SKU is a CSV file, and it's the SKU in one column and the quantity in the next column. If you do not have a scanner, you can still use this SKU upload. So if you prefer to do things in Excel, you can enter all of your counts into that Excel spreadsheet with the SKU number and the quantity and actually upload it from a CSV from here. So you do not have to have a scanner to use this option. And then you also have your override counts option. So if you do multiple counts per snapshot, so we've run the snapshot, you've counted and uploaded it, and then maybe gone back and tried it again and found some differences. If you upload again, it will override the counts. If you upload without that flag on, not if you don't have the override counts flag on, it will actually just duplicate. So looking at that screen now so you can kind of see what I mean, we have our company, our area, and our stock location, and then we've chosen the generic scanner upload. The other options on that drop down again are the generic scanner upload prompt for UPC quantity or by SKU. So then we have our, again, you choose preview and you choose update, and then our 2 options down at the bottom, the 0 count defaults to 1, and then the override count. So again, 0 count defaults to 1. Means that if you've scanned it, but for some reason your file is coming through with a 0 instead of a 1, or a 0 instead of the actual quantity, Jonas kind of protects you there and still at least counts 1 off of that 0. So the next option down under Club Inventory Count is Item Count Conversion Factors. And what this means is, what Jonas has done is, in an effort to help out with the entry of item quantities, during the count, we've added conversion factors. So you do need to have these conversion factors attached to the individual SKU. And they act as a divisor. So if you're entering a quantity such as 1, but when you go ahead and receive the item, you know that 1 actually means 12. All quantities that will enter will be divided by 12. So this is useful for things that come in cases, so golf balls, for example. You'd want to set up a conversion factor so that you don't have to count to, 50, 60, however many come in a case of those little sleeves of golf balls. You can use your conversion factors. So this is what the setup screen looks like for conversion factors. You choose your club, your area code, and your rate code. Then you give it a description, and you can actually set up a little short form just so it's easier for you to use, as well as set in the conversion factor, so what actually equals a count of 1. So those are really the main entry screens of your inventory count. What we'll go through now is just how to reset counts. So if you've uploaded your counts, you've entered your counts, you've done your adjustments, then you've looked around at your ProShop and said, this is completely wrong, we need to reset. You can start over. So there is an option under Club Inventory Counts to reset counts to Snapshot. This will remove any counts entered and will also put them back to the snapshot count. So whether you started them at 0 or you didn't, it will reset everything back to what you snapshotted at. You can also come in here and reset the actual counts to 0. What that means is even if you didn't run the snapshot to say start counts at 0, you can come in here and reset it so that all the actual counts set to 0. So we have run our snapshot. We've printed our count sheets, we've entered in our counts or uploaded our scanner counts. We've also done any cost changes or adjustments. We're ready to go ahead and check out our valuation report. So this is the very bottom option. It's Club Inventory, Inventory Count, Valuation Report, and Update. And actually in the new version 12.7, there is 2 options on the menu for this. The first one is just the preview, and the second one allows you to preview and update. So if you, as the controller, wish to maybe double check this valuation report before your ProShop uploads it, you can just give your ProShop access to the preview, and then you yourself can go in and run the actual update. Very similar to what we see in the point of sale module for the end of day report. So the valuation report and update, what it does is it compares the system count and value to the physical count, and that's the count that you've entered. There are a couple of different ways that you can run this report, and this screen here shows you those parameters. So in this case, we've chosen the order of showing me by category for all my stock locations. You have the option to show your variance between the actual, which is what you entered, and the snapshot, which is what was taken at the time of the snapshot. You can actually print SKUs with no on hand at the time of snapshot, so you can see all your SKUs on one report, no matter if there's a quantity or not. You can print a category summary, so what that means is it gives you by category how much of each you have, and it's just a good glance if you want the big picture number and not the detail. And you can also just print the category summary. So if you don't want to see the item detail at all on this report, you can just see by category, okay, I have this much in hats, this much in accessories, this much in pants, this much in shoes, etc. So this report, basically, what you should have versus what do you have. So you can see down in the bottom on my screenshot here of the report, shows you the snapshot original, shows you any adjustments that were made, then the snapshot on hand. So snapshot on hand just would be the net of the snapshot original and the snapshot adjustment column. And then you have your count on hand, and this is what you physically entered. And the next column over is your count variance. So it tells you what the difference is between what you counted and what Jonas thought that you had. And then depending on the cost method, the variance can be calculated based on the oldest price or the average price. And again, that's completely up to your club and how they've decided to cost out your inventory. So based on your counts, the value at the bottom of this report, so the count value and the variance between the snap and the actual will change. The variance is, of course, the count value less the system value, so the snapshot value. So what you've actually entered minus what Jonas thought you had. So once you have that number, you can go ahead and double check it, make sure it looks right to you. If we're finding that it's not correct, what you can do now is go ahead and make some adjustments. There are a number of different ways to make adjustments based on your costing method. And all costing methods will allow for additional receipts and returns if the option is turned on to adjust the snapshot quantity and value. So after you run the snapshot, if you are processing an inventory receipt or a return SKUs to supplier, if you use a data record that is within that snapshot range, so if I have used, for example, my snapshot of February 28th, if I go ahead after running the snapshot and process a receipt for February 27th, Jonas will pop up if you have this parameter turned on to say, do you wish to update the snapshot as well? If it's not turned on, you actually cannot process any receipts or returns until the count is finalized. So you'll get a message saying, sorry, a snapshot has been run by user Sarah at this time. You cannot process until this valuation report and update is run. So your adjustment types, if we are using, there are a number of different ways to run adjustments. The first one being using adjustment types. So that what this does is it just moves your inventory to an expense account. So it's basically a way to write off your inventory. It can only be used with the first in, first out costing method. So this will be the first one that we go through. If your club is using the first in, first out costing method, this is applicable to you. If you're using average cost, standard cost, or last in, first out, you will not be able to use this, but we do have one coming up for you in the next couple slides. So adjustment types, you can find this in the club inventory processing menu. You just have to set up different adjustment types based on what it's for. So you can set up one for lost, you can set up one for damaged, you can set up one for just a write-off, you're not sure what happened to it. And all of these adjustment types hold a general ledger expense account. So they all hold a different account if you want them to. Could be an inventory write-off account, could be a losses account, it could just be your regular old cost of sales account. What you'll need to do is set up your adjustment types. Once you actually go ahead and enter this screen, if a snapshot was run and the date of adjustment is previous to the snapshot date, you can see that you'll get this warning here. And the warning is kind of close to the top right of this slide. It says a snapshot was done by user SS on December 13th, 2016 at 3:36. This snapshot will be updated with the adjustment if you wish to proceed. So of course, in this case, we do because we're making adjustments to the valuation report and update that we are working on right now. Occasionally, you will want to say no to this because you'll want to make your adjustments after it's updated. Totally depends on the situation. So for the adjustment screen, You'll choose your adjustment type, you'll choose your SKU, and then you'll actually choose the receipt, so the specific receipt that you wish to adjust. So you can see in this screenshot, we have a couple of different options here, mostly from the month of May, of all of our different receipts. And what I'll do is I'll choose one to adjust. So maybe I received 2, and that was only supposed to be 1. So I'll choose one that has 2, and I'll adjust it down to 1. So this is just another image of the warning that you'll get depending on your version. So the previous image was from 12.7. This warning will be from 12.6 and back. It's a little bit different. And it, again, says the exact same thing. It just gives you less information. And this would be an example of the report that you'll get once you start doing your adjustments. So you can see I've made an adjustment now to the SKU at the bottom, 502160. I have my snapshot original as 4. I've adjusted it down by 1, and now my snapshot on hand is 3, so it matches my count on hand. It's not giving me a variance anymore. That's why you would use those adjustments, just so that your snapshot original shows correct and you don't have that variance anymore. So you can adjust it with counts as well, but you will get those general ledger postings maybe that you don't want in terms of variance. So going through the setup of adjustment types, you can find that in Club Inventory, Files, Adjustment Types. So there are a couple of different adjustment type examples here. We have uniforms, wastage, and obsolete items, as well as broke. So the setup is very simple. You just choose your club. You give the adjustment type a code. So in this case, it's broke. Give it a description, which is just a little bit more information, and then an expense GL account. So for broken during shipment, we've chosen to use our freight expenses general ledger account, and this is where the offset will go when you're actually adjusting your inventory. And then again, to process these adjustments, it's Club Inventory, Processing, Inventory Receipt Adjustments, select the type of adjustment and the SKU that you wish to move. And we did already see the screen, but I'll show you again. It's just the club, the area, the date, and a reference. You can also override the general ledger description. So the default description is just inventory adjustment. You could actually put in the reason there so that your controller or your CPA kind of knows why you're making that adjustment. Choose your type, your SKU, and the receipt, and then how much you wish to adjust it by. So if you are not using the first in, first out costing method and you wish to know how to make adjustments, we'll go through one for average cost, which is probably one of the more popular costing methods. So if you are using the average cost costing method for your inventory, you can actually just do a negative receipt. So to adjust the SKU quantity on hand, you just have to go to Club Inventory, Processing, Receive SKUs. Everything as normal as if you were doing a receipt. So your club, choose your club, your area, your receipt number, your supplier, your date of record, and then also a reference and a GL description. And the GL description default is just a supplier name. Pick your SKU and your location, and then just go ahead and put in a quantity received as a negative. So you can see in this case, for our Nike short sleeve, Jonas thought in our snapshot that we had 10. We actually only have 5. So I'm going to receive a -5, and that will drop down my, my SKU quantity on hand. And that will also make the general ledger postings to the expense in the inventory accounts based on the expense account that's hit when we actually receive this SKU. So if I'm receiving a Nike short sleeve, it's probably going to be an expense account such as golf shop purchases. That expense account will get credited with that -5. What you can also use as an average costing method is return SKUs to supplier. So it looks very similar to the receipt screen. Choose your club, your area, your receipt, your supplier, your date of record, your reference, and your GL description. Then choose your SKU. But this time you'll notice that the quantity it's asking for is actually the quantity returned. So you have to choose how much you're sending back, and this will be a positive number because you are returning it. Same thing, it will actually make the general ledger postings to the expense account and the inventory account, and this will make the adjustment to your snapshot as well if you choose the correct date of record. So adjustments, this is what the adjustment audit looks like. So you can see if we're going kind of jumping back now into the first in, first out adjustment method. This is what the audit trail looks like that you get. So you have your SKU, your description, your location, and then you have the original receipt information, so the cost, quantity, and value. You have the adjustment information, the cost and the quantity, and then you have your new receipt. So this is exactly what it'll look like now that if you look back into that receipt history, you can see now that the quantity's gone down, the value's gone down, and the adjustment's gone down. Also makes the appropriate GL postings. So once you've done your receipts, you're happy with your adjustments and your numbers are correct, what you can do is go ahead and finalize your count. So finalizing your count just means going to Club Inventory, Inventory Count, and then Valuation Report and Update. Use the same options as you did in the preview, so however you wish to view this report, go ahead and pick those same parameters. Change the option to Final, Print Report, and Update SKUs. And the date that you choose is for posting options, so if you do general ledger posting from your inventory count, that date is the date of record that your general ledgers will use. So that is important. If you wish to have your inventory count all housed in 1 month, so February 28th snapshot needs to be date of record February 28th, that's when the GL postings go in. Make sure that you are using the date of the snapshot because it will default to today's date, and assuming you do take 1 or 2 days to get your final numbers in there, it will happen in the next month. So make sure that date of record is correct before you go ahead and hit OK. Once you go ahead and hit OK, you will get a valuation report and update. Any changes to those counts will be reflected in the SKU history, which is the transaction log, basically, you'll see, as well as the physical inventory count adjustment. So from the SKU on-hand quantity screen, you can actually see a log of those adjustments. So this is what the report gives you. It just shows you the date of record, the date of entry, what happened, and then which SKU you're adjusting. Gives you the stock location, the opening quantity, and then the quantity on hand, and any value. So our ending quantity, for example, the very bottom one, the bag, Jonas thought we had 0. We adjusted it up to have 1. So now we have a transaction value of about 50.46 and an ending quantity of 1. The breakdown of quantity on hand by stock location, it's really just a kind of an inquiry screen. So you can see your date, your location, quantity received, as well as how much you have remaining, the cost, and the value. It's just an inquiry screen so you can have a look at each SKU individually. And you can find that in the Club Inventory Files Setup SKUs. And then also, if you don't want to go ahead and run a count, but you do need your inventory number, so a real valuation of what you have on hand, there is a report. It's located under Club Inventory Reports, Valuation Report. This gives you the value as of right now. So this is not historical. If you're looking for historical information, it's recommended that you do store the valuation report. And there is an option to include non-updated chits. So if you have, maybe it's a Monday, you know you have Friday, Saturday, Sunday still to do the end of day update for, you can actually include those sales without having to do your end of day update right away. It, however, does not let you select a date. So it's as of right now, this day, there's no backdating in this one. There is a spot, however, to store your valuation reports as you do them from the inventory account. So if you do have a chance, it's under Club Inventory Files, General Parameters. There is a spot to put a folder there so it stores every valuation report that you run via the inventory account. So that is actually all the material I have for today, and I did not receive any questions through the chat or the Q&A, so I will go ahead and unmute the phones now. Just give it a second to kick in, and then we can open up for question and answer.
Line unmuted.
Okay, so phones should be unmuted now if anyone has any questions for me.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
When we had our system set up in 2013, they did set up different SKUs, quantities, they did receipts. After that, we never used it again. There was no more uploading of receipts or doing any of it. So basically, I've got all this inventory with these negative values, and I've tried several different ways. I've done the snapshot, I did an adjustment, I tried to do an update, I haven't been successful. So what is the quickest way for me to zero out all of those negative quantities?
Okay. What I would recommend is running this, and it sounds like you might have already done this, but running the snapshot where you start the counts at 0.
Okay.
And actually uploading it, or going straight to the update and just updating it with everything at 0.
Oh, really? As simple as that. Okay.
Before you do that, though, what I'd recommend is turning off the option to make GL postings for shrinkage and overage, just in case.
Okay.
And that's
the miracle that actually works for me. But,
I think
the other thing I wanted to ask you, because I did some webinars about 2 weeks ago, where do I go to find I know the first one I did with you, you couldn't make the video for some reason that day.
Yes.
So where do we go to get these?
Was that the retail new season cleanup?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, so I was able to get a good video of that one, and that's on the website right now. So if you go to jonassupport.com,
okay.
You have to log in, but you should have had a login to sign up for the webinar, so you should be good on that. And then it's under Resources and Training. It's the 3rd tab.
Resources and Training, okay.
And then if you click on Video Library,
yep.
It's all organized by module. So I think this one is under POS Retail.
Okay.
And if you scroll down, you should see it there. It's just a YouTube video. It's pretty long. I think it's over an hour.
Okay, perfect. Because sometimes, I mean, this is really informative, but sometimes it's moving a little too quickly. Like when I'm trying to make my notes, it'll be great. And what I've actually been doing is creating presentations. So I'm taking screenshots of yours and creating my little file.
Well, the slides are actually available in PDF as well.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, so if you're under that same Resources and Training tab, instead of clicking on Video Library, click on Continuing Education.
Okay.
And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, not all the slides are there, but we do upload them as we do the webinars. So that retail cleanup will definitely be there, and these slides will be there probably, give me like 2 days to get them up.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Do you have any other questions?
Sarah, it's Carol.
Yes, hi.
I'm just wondering if you guys, and I realize this is for the club part of it, I'm just wondering if you would have any webinars for the food and beverage side. And I realize some of this stuff is interchangeable, but some is not because, you know, the way that we package and, you know, like our inventory is being sucked out of, you know, if I get a 60-ounce bottle and I'm putting it on the well. It's just different, and I'm just wondering if you do anything for the food and beverage side.
We don't currently have a webinar for food and beverage inventory, but it's a really good idea because I know what you mean. A lot of clubs are using the beverage inventory portion of Jonas, so let me write that down. We still haven't scheduled our from July to the end of the year webinars yet, so I can put that in.
That's not going to help me, but, you know, if you could, I mean, for next year, it certainly will, but
sure.
I mean, more information on the food and beverage side would be very much appreciated for me. I'm finding it very difficult to find, you know, a lot of help in this area.
Yeah, the beverage inventory is kind of a piecework. Like the Jonas Club inventory is made for retail, so we've kind of worked a workaround for the beverage, but no one's really documented it yet. So that's a good idea. I'll definitely put that on my. I'm the one who makes them, so I'll put that on my list of webinars for sure.
Perfect. Thank you.
No worries.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for me at this time? Okay. I just want to thank you for joining so much, and you can see the note I've put on the screen here. If you have any feedback, there is an email address there to put your feedback, and also the slides, so the PDF version of this presentation will be available, as well as the video recording of this presentation, and both of those are jonassupport.com under the Resources and Training tab. So the video, of course, is under Video Library. The slides are where you sign up for this webinar, which is Club Continuing Education. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining, and I hope you guys have a great day.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks. Thank you.